Hey guys, welcome to D-Bike. My name is Dominic and in today's episode I want to share with you my experiences with the Dengfu R01 frame directly from China. I rode this bike now for roughly 25,000 kilometers over the past 4 to 5 years, and now I have to do a major bike service and I will take the bike completely apart, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to share with you my experiences about the bike and to have a detailed look at the bike frame. So first I want to discuss with you the ordering process, the costs and the shipping of Dengfu. And in a second step, we have a detailed look at the frame itself. Then we might look at the bottom bracket measurements. We measure with an optical measurement system the accuracy of the bottom bracket alignment. And certainly in a last step, at the end of the video, we'll put the frame in the CT scanner, because I know that you like CT scanning of bike frames, and we can observe if there are any potential voids in the carbon layup or how the build quality of the bike is overall. So stay tuned until the end of the video. So I ordered this frame set in September of 2017 and paid for the frame set $550 plus $14 for the not included headset. So overall quite a good price. With shipping and PayPal fees, the total cost was $619, and all of the communication was done via email. So I wrote with a lady called Melody. Now I guess he's called Tony at Dengfu, and the communication was pretty flawless. Like with the light carbon team supporting the communication is just super nice. They reply pretty fast and accurate and in English, so that was pretty good point. So the parcel arrived quite quickly, maybe after 1.5 weeks to Europe, and actually the packaging box looked pretty nice, and also inside the frame was very well protected against some dents whatsoever. So I'm really happy with the shipping experience. So the frame came with a raw carbon matte finish, nothing special. I didn't order any paint job. It supports full internal cable routing, has a BB30 bottom bracket, has a standard 27.2 seat post. This frame is a 58 centimeter size, and it basically fits perfectly to my 193 centimeter size. The maximum recommended tire clearance is 25 millimeters. Maybe you can fit 26 millimeters, but I tried to fit 28s, but they definitely don't work. So yeah, but I guess 25 millimeters for a road bike is way enough for me. Otherwise you can ride your mountain bike. So let's talk about the complications of the frame. So as far as I can remember, I never had any major complication. So the only complication I had was actually with the bottle cage nut. So the nut corroded, or the screw corroded into the nut, and then after loosening the screw, the nut came loose within the carbon frame. So now it's kind of stuck. I still need to figure out how to fix this, but yeah, I guess that's only a minor complication. So apart from that, I didn't really encounter any other major problems. Maybe the only downside of the frame, but that's just something personal, is the bottom bracket. So it's a BB30, so it's really made for a 30 millimeter axle, of course. But as I'm riding Shimano, Shimano has a 24 millimeter axle, so I need some adapters to compensate for that, which is really not ideal. I really want to have a BB86 bottom bracket if possible. But yeah, that's how it is. This makes the frame obviously quite light, but yeah, the stiffness is not that great. So yeah, then we come to the bottom bracket. As I mentioned before, it's a BB30 bottom bracket. I never had any creaking issues whatsoever, so basically never had any problems with the bottom bracket. I'm not really sure if this comes from the really high tolerances or the high accuracy of the bottom bracket, or it is because of the adapters maybe compensate for the error in the bottom bracket. I'm really curious about that, so that maybe I will measure the bottom bracket and give you some idea how accurate the bottom bracket is made. So even though I never had any problems with the frame, I'm still quite interested about the build quality of the frame, how the carbon layout looks like, how many voids are inside the critical parts of the frame. So around the seat post, and obviously around the frontal area, and also around the chainstays, especially where the mating areas are of the different parts of the carbon layup. So I'm really interested about this part, even though I never had any problems, but still quite interested personally. So before we can measure the weight of the frame, we obviously have to strip it from all the different components. So we do that first, then put the frame on the scale, measure the weight, and in the end we put the frame into the CT scanner and measure the quality of the frame. Alright, all the components are now stripped from the frame. This is now the bare frame. There's only the bottle cage still attached because I'm not stripped in the carbon frame. So I cannot take the screw out, and that's also not the bottle cage. Apart from that, there's still the reel driller hanger attached. The internal routed cables are still inside, and also the headset bearings are still inside. I didn't take them out. But now let's put the frame on the scale, measure the weight. So this frame in a size extra large comes in roughly below 1000 grams with the still installed headset bearings, and also with the rear derailleur hanger and the bottle cage. And actually Dengfu claims the weight of the frame to be 850 grams plus minus 50 grams. So yeah, I would say that's pretty nice for an extra large frame with all the components still attached. Then let's also measure the weight of the fork. So the fork comes in at 336 grams, but also here I still have the bearing race attached to the fork. Apart from that, yeah, it's the bare fork. Now let's quickly talk about the bottom bracket. So as you can see here, probably the reason why I never had any problems with the bottom bracket is because they actually molded an aluminium shell inside the frame, and thus the tolerances are quite high, I suppose, because there is no pre-stress in the curing carbon after it cures. Also here the faces are really plain, so it's in one plane. As you can see here, the snap rings are also still inside. I mean, the aluminium shell probably adds a bit of weight, but I rather take this than a bottom bracket which has shitty tolerances. So after this superficial look at the frame, we do now a deep dive into the frame, like literally into the frame, because as promised I put the frame into the CT scanner. And what you can see here now is a 3D representation, like a volume rendering of the frame. So maybe for background purposes, for those who don't really know how a CT scanner works. So basically there's a series of X-rays shot, and X-rays are always 2D because they're like rays coming from a source to the detector. And then the whole CT, or like the source and the detector, they spin very quickly around your subject, and the subject is moving at the same time as it shoots X-rays, so it produces kind of a helix, and these 2D images are then stitched together into a 3D scan based on an algorithm of the CT scanner. And what we get now is a 3D image, basically. And what we can see here is the whole scan, and that's why you can also see here the scan was cut because the width of the frame was larger than the scanner width. But I guess it shouldn't really matter for this purpose. We can still see the C-tube, also the top tube and the chainstays, everything should be in there. So yeah, losing a little bit of the seat tube shouldn't really matter. But basically this is now the volume rendering of the scan. Now the problem is with this big piece is that the voxel size, so basically the 3D pixel, so pixel is in 2D, but a voxel for the CT scan or all in 3D space is called voxel. It has 3 dimensions. So of the whole frame, the voxel size is roughly 1 millimeter per edge. So as you can imagine, the thickness of the whole frame or of the frame walls is less than a millimeter. So if you have a voxel size of 1 millimeter, you basically don't know anything about the frame. So this whole representation of the frame is really nice to get an overview, but to really look into the walls, it doesn't really help because the voxel size is larger than the wall. That said, I reconstructed now smaller region of interests with obviously smaller voxel sizes. So just to illustrate, this would be now a reconstruction of this tube, and it has like a 0.3 millimeter voxel size. So obviously it can be that the walls are still thinner than this 0.3 millimeters, but still we should get some information about voids regardless. So I reconstructed different parts of the frame, seat stays, then also chain stays, top tube, and also here the chain stays, bottom bracket area. Obviously, I'm really interested in the mating areas. So as you can see on the main image, there are some mating areas where the tubes are mated together, and there's always the potential of having voids, because I believe that they can mold normal tubes, but then how the tubes are mated together is always the weakest part. And as you can see here, the bottom bracket area is one piece. Then we have a mold here for the top tube. And then we also have the chain stays. Obviously there is a mold here, and also at the seat stays here. So basically we really want to look at these locations, and that's what we do now. And as I mentioned, with this 3D volume rendering, it gives you a nice idea. For example, here at the bottom bracket area, you see the bolts here, you see the bottle cage I couldn't remove, and so forth. But if you want to see the voids, it's not really helpful. So that's why we look at a single slice. So this slice is basically the 2D representation of one. So it's basically a CT scan is like a stack of 2D images stacked together, and this is now one layer of this stack. So just to give you a quick glimpse, we are now at the bottom bracket area, which I'm interested for, and now we move the slice through the whole part, and we will have a look if there are any voids. So I quickly remove the volume rendering. So these here are now the seat stays, and we move towards the bottom bracket area. So what we can see here is where they mate into the bottom bracket area. Maybe I zoom in a little bit. We see here a little bit of voids because here we have 2 tubes connected together. However, the wall thickness looks thicker than the nominal wall thickness, so that shouldn't be really a problem. So as we come closer, don't worry about what looks like holes in the frame. This is just artifacts from the stainless steel cable. So basically, the brighter something is, the denser or the more attenuation it has, so it more absorbs the X-rays. And because of the steel, it produces some artifacts, but that shouldn't really matter for this purpose here. So now we come to the bottom bracket. There's some little voids, but still this area is quite reinforced, so that looks good to me. We see some small voids here, but yeah, really there's a large area with thick walls, so that shouldn't be a problem. So basically this is the shifter cable, I guess, which is routed inside. Now when we go through, we see here the other shifter cable for the front shifter. And now what we can see here is in this area here we have some voids, and this should be the stiffest region because here all the power is transmitted from the crankset. So this is not really a good sign. It should rather look like that without this little void, but like really strong. But here are definitely some voids which shouldn't be here, here as well, but maybe that's also not super critical. But and then we see here the very bright area, that is the, I assume, aluminium shell of the bottom bracket. That's why, yeah, we basically have perfect alignment because this piece of aluminium is molded into the frame. Now when we go further through, probably this is also artifacts as well here, so don't worry about that. But basically this part here is really not solidly made. A lot of voids here. You can also see voids here. So bottom bracket area not super stiff. Obviously here we see very good tube shapes, very nice layup of the carbon fiber. I don't see a problem here. And then as we go further up, we still see some voids here. And then it mates into the down tube, and this down tube just looks nice. Then as soon as, so just for reference, maybe I'll show quickly where we are in the big picture. So this is now the down tube and the C tube, and which like separates at this point. And these are always the critical parts where it separates, and we can see here clearly there are some voids which shouldn't be there, which is a bit sad, but yeah, what can you do? Here it looks pretty fine. And now when we go up further, I don't assume that there should be any voids, because I mean there are normal tubes, quite easy to manufacture. And as you can see, when I scroll through, yeah, there are no voids at all here. The whole down tube is pretty nicely made. And then what we can see here is the lower bolt of the bottle cage, and the further up we go, we see the bottle cage here as I move through the scan. But I can skip that a little bit because this all looks pretty fine to me. Now we come to the headset bearing, and as you can see here, it also mates with the head tube, and yeah, these are artifacts for sure, because these are now the steel bearings of the headset. But apart from that, the carbon looks very nice to me. And this is the whole tube. It looks like it's reinforced here. And that's it from the headset. That looks pretty well. So for this section, we can summarize that the bottom bracket really, is not optimal, I'd say. Not very well made, especially in the lower part of the bottom bracket. Lots of voids visible, even despite the artifacts, but it's quite visible here. The rest looks pretty fine to me. So now let's move on to another part. Just for reference, we look now at the upper part. So C-tube and top tube. So if I scroll around, So now let's look at this piece. So when we go through from this side, so we start first with the top tube, then seat tube, and then seat stays. So let's deactivate that. This as well. And now let's scroll through. So as I mentioned first, this should be the top tube. And also here, I mean the tube shape, yeah, as I mentioned, it's not very difficult to manufacture. Now here, the mating should start soon with the seat tube. So here is unfortunately the cut piece, but here it mated. And you can see here the two tubes are basically stuck together. That's why you have a thicker and a thinner area. But yeah, obviously it exceeds the normal width, so it's even stronger. So basically reinforced in this region. So now it separates, so the seat tube and the seat stays, they separate here. And this area looks very well connected. So no voids here in this region, which is good to know, I'd say. So if we move further down, we see here the seat stays merging, and you can see quite a lot of voids, and even, yeah, I rather say big voids or larger voids. So this is now in the region, let's quickly check. So it's now in the region where the seat stays merges into one block and then separates into the two seat stays. So this region is yeah, has a lot of voids. I'm not sure how critical this is. Never had problems so far. It also didn't break so far, obviously, but yeah, we see here quite large voids. But because it is quite a solid piece, it's already quite strong in itself. So if you compare the thickness of the tube shape compared to this piece, I guess that the voids don't really matter. But they're all over the place here. And now the two tubes, they separate here. So now they're separated in this part. So also at the boundary between the separation, it looks nice to me. And then when we go further down, the brake caliper mount should come into place here, exactly. So we see here the bolt where the rear brake is screwed into, and also this region looks very nice. There are no voids here, so this is a highly stressed part, obviously, because you have the brake caliper, and when you clamp the brake, you basically create a momentum because of the wheel pulling on the brake caliper during braking. So this is a stressed area, and yeah, but it looks pretty fine to me. Yeah. And then when you go further down, so sorry, other way around. So further down, I mean, these are just basic tubes, not even different shape or so. It's just cylindrical. So this looks very nice. And then when it joins at the bottom, so here we see the two tubes also mated again together. So this looks like a mess, but don't worry, this is pretty fine because the outer thickness is still there, and it mates here pretty nicely, quite solid at this point, and then yeah, results in another cylinder again. And then it joins again. Here is the rear derailleur hanger, so basically no real voids here. And this is the hanger then, and the hanger mount. Yeah. So this piece looks quite nice to me. I don't have anything to criticize. Now let's look at the top tube and at the upper headset bearing. So you see the races here with the steel balls inside, and then also the brake cable for the rear brake coming in below the top tube. So let's do now the same. We start from the back and move towards the front. I disable the 3D volume rendering. So now this is the top tube coming into the view. Again, this is just a normal tube, nothing really special here. It looks just fine. Here the brake cable exits the tube, also pretty fine, nothing to criticize. And now we merge with the headset part, and also here at the merger area it looks pretty nice to me, so nothing to criticize again. No voids here at the boundary layer, perfect. And then obviously here are the steel bearings. We don't really see much because it really distorts the image. But here also the walls look pretty nicely made. Yeah. So to conclude, also this section just looks good. And then let's look at the last part. This last part for reference is, maybe I show you also. So the seat stays, just the seat stays here where they mate, and also so the seat stay here and the chain stays are now visible. We first look at the seat tube, sorry, not the seat stays, the seat tube, and then the chain stays. So again, we start from the seat tube and then move towards the back. So get a bit closer here. Now let's go through. So this is here are the bottle cage mounts, washers. So just to reference, for reference where we are, this is now the front derailleur hanger or the front derailleur clamp, which is out of metal, that's why it's so bright. But also here nothing to criticize. Once we move further to the back, it's just a tube. Again, it's here there's never a problem. It's only the mating area which can be a problem, which we come now where the seat stays are, the chain stays, sorry, mated together. So here we come from the bottom bracket, and here you see some voids because here the two tubes are mated, and you can see a little bit of mess in this area. So probably it was difficult to inflate the balloon inside, which gives a pressure to the walls, and here we have a lot of voids. So just for reference where we are in the grand scheme of things. So this is exactly this part where the two tubes, so the bottom bracket and the chainstays, are mated together. And again here we have a lot of voids, so bottom bracket and chainstays have a lot of voids. I guess it's more critical for the bottom bracket, but yeah. So again, it depends all on the thickness of the walls, and here obviously the thickness is thicker than for the rest, so it shouldn't really be a problem. These parts here, they can be a little bit of problem just for the internal cable routing. You can imagine if you have to pull a cable from the rear derailleur through this chainstay, and you have like carbon layers folded up, it can be really tough, and that's from my experience true. So this is I guess the only negative part of it. I mean, it doesn't look that nice, but it shouldn't really matter. As you can see, this is the normal thickness of the chainstay, and this is just reinforced. It looks a bit messy, but it shouldn't really be a problem. And here as well, Here we have some voids that should be mentioned because this is just a normal tube. This shouldn't have any voids. So the right hand side or the drive side chainstay where the cable is routed, there are some voids. Now when you go further to the back, it looks pretty neat to me. Again, these are normal tubes again. And now we are at the end. Yeah, that looks fine. So overall, if I show you the whole image again. So overall, we have some voids, especially at the mating areas, which I suspected there will be some voids. These are not really critical to me. The wall thickness is way above the normal wall thickness. However, I'm a little bit upset about the bottom bracket area there, especially in the lower part of the bottom bracket area. There are a lot of voids, which shouldn't be there, and probably it also decreases the stiffness of this part here. But overall, yeah, there was nothing major. Looks pretty fine to me. Not the highest quality, but I guess no frames or barely any frames look better because they also mate at different areas. But you know, I have to investigate a bit more, compare it to other frames, and then we can discuss it a bit more scientifically and compare it to other brands. Yeah, apart from the bottom bracket area, I'm pretty happy. Now I'm interested about you. Are you interested in other frames to be scanned? How do you feel about your frame? Do you think you also have voids, or do you think other brands or well-known brands, they don't have any such voids? Yeah, please let me know in the comments down below. With that, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, then please give it a like, some thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you liked it. And thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.